You know that quiet habit you have where you pause before speaking or double check the room before letting yourself relax? Most people won't notice it, but you do, because it's been there for as long as you can remember. There's a certain kind of person who learned early on to be a few steps ahead, the one who grew careful instead of carefree, the one who learned to read people the way other kids learned to read books. And even now, years later, there's a part of you that still feels like you're the one holding everything together, even when no one asked you to. Society tends to mislabel this. They call it maturity, or responsibility, or being wise beyond your years. But those words miss the truth, because they make it sound like something you chose. They make it sound like a strength you decided to cultivate, instead of something life quietly demanded from you. There's nothing wrong with you for being this way. You weren't dramatic. You weren't overreacting. You were adapting. The real topic here is something almost never explained with the depth it deserves: the psychology of a child who grew up too fast. Not just a child who was independent, but a child whose nervous system learned to function in a world that required vigilance, understanding, and emotional labor long before they had the language for any of it. And there's more going on here than people realize. Psychologists sometimes talk about premature self-reliance, a pattern where the brain wires itself around responsibility and emotional monitoring at an age when it should be wiring around exploration and play. Studies on childhood stress show that when a young nervous system senses instability, emotional, financial, or relational, it shifts into efficiency mode. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that handles planning and self-control, becomes hyper-engaged, while areas tied to emotional expression learn to quiet themselves. But science can feel cold on its own, so here's what that actually means. You learned to manage things that should have been managed for you. You learned to predict moods because unpredictability felt dangerous. You learned to stay composed because falling apart wasn't an option. Your brain wasn't trying to make you strong, it was trying to keep you safe. What people often forget is that childhood isn't just an age, it's an environment. And when that environment asks a kid to be alert, responsible, or emotionally self-contained, the body listens. You might have had parents who struggled, or caregivers who leaned on you, or a home where emotions had to be measured carefully. You may not even frame it as trauma. Many people don't. What you felt was simply, I have to handle this. And so you did. You became the calm one, the stable one, the one who understood things without them being said. Not because you wanted to grow up quickly, but because your nervous system was adapting to the world it lived in. None of this makes you better or worse than anyone else. It doesn't put you on a pedestal or in a deficit. It just makes your story different. People who grew up slower aren't wrong. People who grew up faster aren't wrong. Different histories create different wiring, and different wiring creates different strengths and challenges. Here's the part most people never talk about. There's a paradox to growing up too fast. On the surface, you seem mature, capable, grounded, and you are. But beneath that strength is a quiet longing for the softness you never got to experience, for the ease you had to skip over, for the version of you who might have been carefree if life had felt safer. It isn't weakness, it's the cost of being the one who had to understand too much, too soon. But there's also a hidden strength. People who grow up too fast often develop extraordinary emotional intelligence. You sense tension before others notice it. You understand perspectives instinctively. You carry a kind of steadiness that makes others trust you. Not because you're performing maturity, but because your brain built an internal map that many adults don't develop until much later. The challenge is that this same strength can make it hard to know when you're allowed to rest, when you're allowed to be supported, when you're allowed to not be the strong one. If you grew up learning that your stability was what held everything together, it's natural that your body still resists letting go. It's not anxiety, it's familiarity. And here's the quiet truth you may not have heard enough. Nothing about you is broken. You're not too intense. You're not too guarded. You're not bad at relaxing or overly mature or emotionally distant. You're someone whose early world required a different skill set, and your mind rose to the task. That's not a flaw. It's resilience in its rawest form. There's a reason you feel older than your age sometimes. There's a reason you're drawn to stability or control or calmness. There's a reason chaotic people drain you and predictable environments soothe you. It's all connected to the version of you who had to build safety from the inside out. If any of this feels familiar, take a breath. Your story makes sense. Your patterns make sense. And the way you learned to survive has value, even if others never saw the weight you were carrying. There's more to explore about this part of you. The patterns you learned in childhood didn't disappear. They just grew quieter, blending into your adult life. If you want to understand them more deeply, why you connect the way you do, why certain people feel comforting, why others feel exhausting, there's another layer worth uncovering. And if this resonated, you might find the next insight speaks to you even more.